Welcome back to the Sports Medicine Orthopod. My name is Anthony Yu. Allow me to reintroduce my good friend, Dr. Adam Schiff, foot and ankle specialist from Loyal in Chicago. Adam is a longtime contributor to the show, but this is his first appearance on our YouTube channel. Adam, welcome. Are you ready for the spotlight?
Oh, Anthony, it is so good to be back. New season, new media, no damn introduction music still. We got to get this going here.
That's comes in the post editing
Okay,
stage.
okay.
Adam's great to see you. It's been a long time, too long, and I wanted to bring you on because there are a couple foot injuries that's up your wheelhouse that I'm not so certain about, and so I sought you out for some clarity. First one being Jaycee Horn, the very promising rookie for the Carolina Panthers, cornerback position, who hurt himself almost a week ago now, Thursday Night Football of week 3, in a non-contact kind of misstep pivoting type injury. Did you see that? Did you catch the game?
Yeah, absolutely. Caught the game, caught the highlights. No one wants to see foot ankle injury. No one wants to see injuries in general, especially foot ankle injuries.
Nobody wants to see feet.
That's right. No one wants to smell feet. That's for sure. But anything to get me back on the show. So I can't say I'm sad for JC, but I'm excited just to be here. We had a run of not a lot of foot ankle injuries in baseball, but it's good to have football back. It gives me a chance to reunite with you and the rest of the Loyal team. So yeah, Jaycee Horn with an unfortunate injury. This is tough. We see these so commonly in the NFL, but here's a guy drafted 8th, just getting started in a really promising career, and a non-contact injury like this. And I think we always worry about these non-contact injuries, in your world with knees, but you don't usually see these in the foot. I think when you think non-contact injury in the foot, it's almost always Achilles, right? You take a misstep, and this is a totally different scenario. We're hearing multiple metatarsal fractures, and it's kind of unusual in the way that it presented.
Yeah, so there's like 82 bones in the foot. What are the metatarsals? Like, give us an idea of where those are at in the foot.
Yeah, so most people have their 5 toes, and then basically what attaches the toes to the back of the foot where all the action is the metatarsals, right? So they'd be the long parts in your hand and the long parts of the foot, and they're sort of the transition zone, right, where they're connecting. The ankle is where all of your action happens, where a lot of the motion, your ability to push off, adjust to uneven surfaces. Then you have the sort of stable part of the foot. That's what allows you to absorb the impact on the ground and allows you to really push off as you're walking. And then the toes kind of give you some more motion, particularly the big toe. It lets you get up on your tiptoes and up on uneven surfaces and up for ballet, things like that.
Yeah.
So the metatarsals are that mobile section of your foot. It sort of connects that mobile section where your toes are to the stable part of your foot. And there's lots of injuries that can happen in that area. But if you think about the importance of that, that's where you absorb your weight and your impact. And so if you have an injury to that area, you lose the ability to strike the ground and absorb your impact, and you lose the ability to transition and push off. And so it's really the key to walking and running and jumping and uneven surfaces and grass and things like that. So these are really tough injuries for athletes, particularly NFL players.
Yeah, and the reporting at least made it seem like there was, well, at least he was fielding some opinions in terms of what to do, conferring with doctors, speaking with his family and loved ones about what we can only imagine treatment decisions, which in this case is going to be surgery versus some sort of non-surgical treatment, which if you treat it non-surgically, probably a period of not walking on it, being in a boot, et cetera, being out for a long time. Ultimately, he has chosen surgery. I'm not, at the time of this recording, I'm not, it hasn't been confirmed that he has actually had the surgery or hasn't, but it is coming, and his return to the field, at least for this season, is very much up in the air. And so not all metatarsal fractures need surgery. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say the vast majority of them that, us lay people have are not operative issues. There's a few particular metatarsal injuries that probably do need an operation almost always. and one of those is Lisfranc. And so when we hear multiple metatarsal fractures, in an athlete, it's immediately what's coming to mind is a sort of Lisfranc injury. And whenever we're talking surgery, if we have multiple fractures, it's again almost always in that Lisfranc world. Now, what's unusual about this, Anthony, is that when you have these types of fractures and types of injuries, the Lisfranc injuries, it's not that controversial, right? You want to play at a high level, it's almost always operative. And so given that there's multiple opinions and that it's not clear cut right away that it was going to turn into a surgical problem, this either must be a very subtle injury or the diagnosis wasn't clear at first. Maybe there's little small avulsion fractures, or maybe it wasn't the major metatarsals. We think the first and the second, maybe the third are the stronger ones, and then you start getting a little bit less important until you get to the fifth. And so you think maybe these are sort of less important or more subtle injuries. Now, it has not been confirmed to the Lisfranc, but when you're talking about multiple metatarsal fractures and there's a debate about surgery, it's pretty much got to be a Lisfranc injury.
Yeah, and so for the audience, first refers to big toe, fifth, the pinky toe, and that avulsion fracture is something we talk about. It's kind of like a chip fracture where a little piece of bone is pulled off really by a ligament that's connected to the bone, as opposed to, bone being kind of like split in half by trauma or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the ligaments, especially in this part of the foot, are what gives you the stability, right? That's what makes this thing so strong is the ligaments. And so, you can have injuries where the ligaments themselves tear, or you can have injuries where the ligament rips a piece of bone off. And so it shows up as a very subtle or small fracture. The fact that bone broke is probably not the significant thing. That it's the fact that the ligament is not functional because the bone broke is what really matters. And you'd have to think when you have multiple metatarsal fractures, but it's not clear, is there must be several of these avulsion fractures. So several places where the ligaments that are so important have injured the bone. And it's a question now of, is that bone going to heal without surgery? Or do you do a surgery to keep that bone lined up so the ligaments heal the way they're supposed to? And you can just imagine with an injury like this, it's a little bit more controversial. It's probably these small avulsion fractures, and the past week has been spent trying to figure out how stable is that ligament. Is the ligament going to heal and work, or is the ligament not going to work? And that's what's so important for these players.
Let's try to paint a picture of the anatomy so that the listener, the viewer, can get an idea of where this is located in the foot and what are these different structures that are at play to create the stability at a very important part. So like when we say Lisfranc, where are we referring to in the foot?
Yeah, so when we're talking about the middle of the foot, where the metatarsals are connected to sort of the middle or back of the foot, and the important or the load-bearing part of the foot, the part of the foot that's absorbing all that weight, is what's connected to the big toe. So you've got the big toe metatarsal and its connection to the middle part of the foot. So basically, if you just follow the big toe, south towards the middle of the foot, it's that area. And this is a unique area. It's one of the few reasons you'd see bruising on the bottom of your foot. So these players, characteristically, even if their pain's not that bad, they've got this bruising or blood on the bottom of their foot. It's very characteristic for a ligament injury back there.
Is there something about this particular area that makes it prone to injury? I mean, we have a common name, Lisfranc, for this. Is there something about this area that maybe makes it weak or prone to injury?
I don't think so. I mean, this is the stable part of the foot. This is what's absorbing a lot of the weight and the impact. And a lot of it is the nature of professional athletes. These are not typically non-contact injuries. These are typically contact. We see these very commonly in offensive linemen. In fact, every textbook and every article that talks about these has a picture of an offensive lineman. Their foot gets planted, so their toes are in the ground, and they're kind of up on their toes, and then someone falls on them or lands in their heel. So the loading from the heel driving down into the ground is what injures this part of the foot. In a non-contact setting, pretty unusual. I mean, we can see these in us lay people when, a patient falls down a stair or misses a step off a curb because their foot gets put in that down position and absorbs the weight. field looked pretty good to me. I didn't see any stairs in that field. So it's pretty unusual that you would see an injury like this. But again, these guys are putting so much forth through their body and so much impact. And, it might have been when he went to jump on the play before or a little bit earlier in the game and caused some injury and weakened it. And then just this is what sort of set it off.
So while they're going through this decision-making, weighing the treatment options, what from your standpoint, the foot and ankle specialist who is advising him, what do you do to gain more information to give the patient, in this case, this NFL future star player, all the information he needs to make the right decision?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first thing is obviously figuring out what the extent of the injury and we call it the stability of the injury, right? Is this something that's going to be lined up well, in which case it might heal? Or is this something as he might start walking, the bones are start drifting apart because the ligaments aren't holding? And so, the very first thing we would do is get x-rays and make him stand for an x-ray, right? So even though it hurts, you get what's called standing x-rays. And just the force of your body weight is probably enough to start seeing it, the bones staying lined up, or are they not staying lined up?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't always get that. Right? Patients can hurt, and you don't want to put weight on that. And so sometimes we have to go to other tests. An MRI or CT scan could be very helpful. They're certainly not conclusive all the time, but they can be helpful in just trying to get some more information. We'd have the opportunity to give someone a shot on their leg or shot on their ankle, make their foot go to sleep, so numb their foot, and then test them under x-ray also, where we're actually doing what's called stress testing. We're trying to pull those bones apart under x-ray to see, are they staying lined up or are they not? Sometimes it needs to be done in surgery to figure that out. And if you take a guy like Jaycee Horn, who, pretty well-built guy, clearly an athlete, it's going to be hard for someone like us to overpower his strength, especially if he's hurting, to evaluate that. That's something that has to be done in surgery under anesthesia to really see if those things are holding together or not. And so you do a lot of things to test the strength of that ligament. And in an athlete like him, it probably takes multiple tests to really figure out which ligaments are injured and are those needing to be fixed with an operation or not.
Yeah. So from what you're telling me, it sounds like the stability is really the key issue. I think when people hear broken bone, they're a lot like orthopedic surgeons. Broken bone, must fix. But it's not always like that, because a lot of broken bones will actually heal, and maybe not perfect alignment, but acceptable alignment that requires no surgery whatsoever. But in this case, it's not just broken bone. There's this thing about stability of that area of the foot. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, broken bones want to heal. As long as they're in the same ballpark, these bones will heal. It's just a question of when they heal, are they going to heal in a place that is suitable for function? Mm-hmm. And that has both short-term and long-term implications, right? If it doesn't heal exactly right, the first question in someone like this is, can they still play? Will they have the strength and the stability to push off and run and jump and do what they need to do to win? And then more long-term, if it doesn't heal right, is that putting them at risk for things like arthritis and, disability as they get older? And, you're trying to make those determinations as time goes on. For this type of injury, a Lisfranc injury like this, very rarely are they stable, right? Especially in an NFL injury where it's multiple bones are fractured, multiple ligaments. Those very commonly need surgery. Now, this one's a little different. It's non-contact. It's called lower energy. It didn't take a big hit. It didn't have the same force that a lot of these do. But certainly you have to suspect that anything that might compromise stability would compromise function. And, you never want to see an injury like this. You never want to see a promising career put on hold for almost a year. But, you can imagine if you don't treat it the right way now, you could be talking about multiple years or a whole career kind of in the works.
Yeah. And rookie season, no time to be cutting corners so he can miss a few weeks of come back a few weeks early and risk the longevity of his career. Okay. So, he's having, go ahead.
It's Carolina, and, Sam Darnold is a resurgence, and they don't even need Jaycee Horn anymore,
Yeah. How's that working out for the Jets? So we know he's having surgery. You're a foot and ankle specialist. Is there one way to fix it, or are there a few ways to skin this cat? What generally are you doing in the surgery itself?
Yeah, so I think this is where the controversy is in these Lisfranc injuries. It's not so much in the diagnosis. We know what to do with the diagnosis. You have to diagnose it. I mean, that's what's so important. How you treat it's a little bit more controversial. There's ways you can do it where you fix it. You put plates and screws to hold the bones lined up. Keeping them lined up in that position lets the ligaments heal. And then at some point, you can take those screws out and preserve motion, allow things to still move. You can leave the hardware in and not let things move. Or you can do what's called a fusion, which is they actually weld the bones together and prevent them from moving permanently. And, this is where there's some controversy in a high energy injury, an injury that, car accidents, big falls. There's definitely a role for fusion. In a elite professional athlete with a career in front of them, if doing a fusion might impact them. I think it would impact them a lot. So I think there's some controversy in it. For me, these are getting fixed with plates and screws, holding the things together, letting the ligaments heal, getting it back to play, and then next offseason taking those screws out and giving a chance to have some motion still at that joint. So I think that's likely what's going to happen. That's certainly what I would do. There are some, good research articles looking at fusion in soccer players. So, real football, every other country, and doing fusion seemed to do really well for those athletes. I just think that you do lose a little bit of push off. You lose a little bit of motion. I think jumping and running is a little bit harder, certainly in a cornerback, which is one of the most skilled positions in terms of, agility and, running up and down the sidelines. I think he would lose something with the fusion for sure. So my preference, of course, not knowing his injury and what the images look like, my preference would certainly be to fix it with plates and screws.
Next episode, Dr. Schiff's going to break out his Ted Lasso Running Man. So stay tuned for that, guys.
Absolutely. And my mustache.
That's right. So what about return? Is it pretty reliable? Certain timeline you would expect him to be back? Is it unfathomable that he would see the field again this season if this is a Lisfranc and he's undergoing surgery? What do you think?
I mean, it would be unlikely that he comes back this season, although you never really count out these elite athletes. They seem to heal better than almost anybody else. Yeah. It's week 3, 4 in the NFL now. You would plan on him being out for about 6 weeks, walking on it, crutches, all that kind of stuff. And then, starting to advance come week 6 to week 8, maybe running at week 8 at best case scenario. You need to stiffen the foot to let these things heal. And so you can certainly do that with a cleat, put a metal insert or a carbon graphite or carbon fiber insert in a shoe, which takes away some of the bend. So it's certainly realistic he could be starting to run towards the end of the season. Whether that's enough to get him playing or not is hard to say. I mean, in a cornerback kind of world, I can't imagine he comes back this season. But if Carolina's playing well and gets in the playoffs, there's certainly a chance. So I think, we'll see Jaycee Horn go on the injured reserve. I think he's going to miss multiple weeks. You never know come week, 13, 14, 15, 16, there's 17 weeks now, or 18 weeks, 17 games. Certainly by the end, if they're making a run, he'd have a chance. You just can't imagine he's going to come back in as good shape as he was. It's going to take a while to build that up. And you can't imagine any team throwing away their first round draft pick on 1 or 2 games unless they're really in the championship round or, in the Super Bowl. So I don't think you'll see him, but certainly the timing could work out that he could be back at the very end of the year.
Yeah, I'd say, and definitely the trend in professional sports is be more conservative. Just give him more time. Don't put him at risk for re-injury. So I completely agree with you. Hey, folks, thanks for tuning in. If you like the show, please subscribe, like, and share. And we love to hear from you. If you have a question about today's show, or you, a loved one, or maybe your favorite athlete has sustained a sports medicine injury that you would like to know more about, please reach out to us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or email. And stay tuned for more exciting content from the Sports Medicine Orthopod. Thanks again.